Welcome to my first cooking video where I'll be making what I call Mama's Vegetable Beef Soup in the Instant Pot. And I'm inspired to make this video for my son Garrett, who's been away at college, and oh, this boy loves to eat. And I know he's missed Mama's home cooking, so I recently bought him an Instant Pot for Christmas. And making this video would just be an easy way for me to show him just how easy it is to cook in the Instant Pot. And who knows, it may inspire other college students or amateur chefs to use the Instant Pot to make delicious, easy, and nutritious meals. So very quickly, the Instant Pot is nothing new. It's just a newfangled rendition of what I remember as an old-time pressure cooker. You know, the kind we put on the stove, and it scared me to death that it might explode. But the new Instant Pot is actually much easier to use with a lot more features. All right, let's go over the ingredients. And I'll also include the ingredients in the About section of this video. First, you will need an onion, like a medium-sized onion, and you will also need 4 or 5 medium-sized potatoes peeled and cubed. You'll need a bag of frozen vegetables. I like this kind with the okra in it. You'll also need 2 cans of stewed tomatoes. I didn't have 2 in my pantry, so I used some crushed tomatoes. I later found some stewed tomatoes. Also 4 cups of chicken broth, or one of those big boxes. I believe one box is equivalent to about 4 cups, and I like the kind with the low sodium. You'll also need 2 cups of water, and either ground beef or ground turkey. I use a combination of each. Some basil and some pepper. I use a little oregano actually, sometimes as well, if that's all you have. I also add some of this orzo pasta. All right, time to cook and show you just how easy this is. I thought I'd give a few practical tips while I'm cooking. I use a method of peeling that I learned from my mom many years ago. A sharp knife is crucial, but be careful if you peel this way if you're not experienced at peeling. Okay, you can use a regular vegetable peeler for this. That might be a bit safer if you're not used to this method here. I'm also going to show you a neat way to cube potatoes very quickly. Again, it's another thing that requires some patience and practice, but in time you'll just get the hang of it. I started to do the technique that I'll show later on this onion, but it kind of fell apart on me. But also too, that teal colored mat cutting board underneath is a plastic cutting board. I absolutely love these because, you know, you can just wash them really easily, and you can fold them to pour your things into a pot. It makes it real easy to dump things into your pot. All right, here's the little technique with the potato. What I do, again, you've got to be really careful, is I cut through the potato like 4 times, going not all the way through. Then I turn the potato, and you do the same thing, just crossways. So when you're done, you have got a little quartering section of these potatoes. Now again, I do this with my method that I've learned over the years to be very careful. I don't cut all the way through to my thumb, obviously, but if you're more comfortable with it, you can lay it down on the cutting board and cut it after you do this with the big knife. It's just a fast, easy way to cut. All right, now time to actually put some things in the Instant Pot. The Instant Pot has all of these buttons. It can be overwhelming. I really only use 2 of them. The first one is often the saute feature. It's really just like having a little frying pan on your stove where you saute some vegetables. Sometimes you saute some meats. It gives a little extra flavor. Now I'm going to add some olive oil to this just so these onions won't stick, and I'm going to swirl it around. Even though I turned it on, the edges of that pot are not hot, but do not touch the bottom of it. I actually just burnt myself showing my son a demonstration of how to use this, not realizing how hot it actually gets on the bottom. All right, put your onions in the pot, stir them around. That it does get hot very quickly with the saute feature, and just kind of, you saute onions usually until they're clear, about 3 to 4 minutes, and then you're ready to add your ground beef. Again, I used a combination of ground beef and ground turkey, probably just a little healthier than all ground beef. Sometimes I actually will microwave my ground beef for 3 minutes. That way I do it in a glass bowl, and then it's easy to strain the fat liquid off of the ground beef. But you can also do it this way. This, I recommend be very careful because again, the edges of the pot are not that hot, but you don't want to burn yourself with the bottom, and you also don't want to burn yourself with the steam that sometimes will come up from if you're trying to drain it. You don't have to do this step, but I like to drain off all of that fat. All right, so now it's time to just cancel that after your meat is cooked. And by the way, it doesn't have to be cooked all the way because we're going to be doing this with a pressure cooking feature, and so it will definitely finish cooking. I just like to cook it enough to get the grease off the meat. Okay, we add the potatoes, we add the I finally found some diced tomatoes. These are the kind I normally like, any kind of canned of stewed tomatoes. You can do just one can if that's all you have. And I, again, didn't have another can, so I just add a little bit of this crushed tomatoes in here. Again, 1 or 2 cans. I like to be or to improvise a little while I cook and not have to be so strict with everything. Here's that gumbo mix I like, but if you don't have that kind, you can use any type of package of frozen vegetables. These kitchen shears are a great tool to have. I went many years without having these. I'm like, how did I do that? Because it's just such a handy tool. Here we go with the basil or Italian seasoning if you have it, or oregano. I find all of these herbs work great for this recipe. I don't like to get fussy with measurements. Often I'll just put what I think is about a teaspoon in my hand, dump it in. That's why it's called Mama's recipe. You know, moms learn these little tricks. I'm going to add the chicken broth now, which is a whole carton. What is that, a 32-ounce carton of this? I find it's pretty close to 4 cups. Later we're going to be adding also 2 cups of water. Now also I heard on another cooking show that if you turn this upside down with the pour spout on the top, it doesn't like gurgle and splash as much. So little tip. Make sure too, some of these liquids in this box, they get kind of caught up in it. So make sure you kind of shake it around and get all of that liquid out. All right, now let's give it a good stir. And there's no need to add any extra salt to this recipe. The chicken broth has plenty of that. We want to keep this healthy. Now I'm going to add approximately 2 cups of water. Now the reason for this too, it may have already looked kind of liquidy, but with the Instant Pot, you do not want this burn feature to show up. Sometimes when you're cooking, if things don't have enough liquid, they'll actually kind of stick and burn to the bottom, and your pot will give you a little burn symbol on the display screen, and I believe it automatically shuts off. But all right, here's the orzo pasta. It's about 1/4 cup. You don't want to add too much of this because it is going to expand, and you don't want your soup to be so much pasta in it. Now another reason you want this pretty liquidy is because it's going to expand. Here is the pepper. Again, my little technique. I like pepper. What's that, about almost a teaspoon, maybe a 1/2 to 3/4 of a teaspoon. Okay, we give it a good stir around. And by the way, if you don't have the orzo pasta, any kind of small pasta would work. Even like macaroni would work. All right, here's where I improvise a little. I often like to put in some of this turkey Polska kielbasa. I happen to have some, and it adds a little bit extra flavor. You certainly don't have to do this, but you know, that's why it's called Mama's vegetable beef soup. You know, moms just kind of throw things in sometimes that they've learned over the years work and taste good. Okay, so now I want you to take note that this pot is not filled up all the way to the top. In the Instant Pot, you don't want to go really any more than 3/4 of the way full, because when it builds to pressure, it can come out of the top actually. Now the Instant Pot has a neat little arrow on the top that actually has a little guideline. You can't see it in my video here, but it'll show you where it lines up. The guideline is really over to the right where it sets in place, and then you turn it to the left and it locks into place. Now here is the little vent. This is the pressure release valve or pressure closing valve. When it's forward, pressure is coming out. When it's backward, pressure is staying trapped in. That little silver plug there, when it's down, it means there's no pressure in the pot. As the pressure builds, that little thing will pop up, and keep it sealed to the back while you're cooking, and then it's time to go ahead and let's get this baby going. Now don't be intimidated by all of the choices on the Instant Pot. The one that I use the most is the pressure cook feature, and you just push pressure cook. It also is going to give you a little timer. I'm taking this down to just about 10 minutes. Mostly everything in this is already cooked and kind of softer vegetables, so 10 minutes is fine. You can actually even do like 8 minutes. After a few seconds, when you set the time, the on light will come on and you'll hear a little beep, meaning it's getting ready. Now I'm pointing there to a keep warm button that automatically comes on when you start it. I turn it off because I don't want it to keep cooking if I'm away from my pot. Now I'm pressing at my arm like a watch because it's going to take a while for this to build up to pressure. There I am showing the keep warm button. And again, I just turn it off unless you're going to be around. You just want to keep it warm after. It's going to be warm, trust me. It takes it a while to cool down. I wanted to explain here that once it's on and you're ready to go, this is going to take quite a while to come up to pressure. I find it usually takes about 10 to 15 minutes before it comes up to pressure and finally starts the countdown for the timer that you've set. Here I wanted to show a little more closely the actual vent. Now you can see it's towards the back, which is closed, and it will build up pressure. Towards the front is where it's actually releasing pressure. Now that's the little silver plug that's down because there's no pressure in the pot yet. It will pop up when it is fully pressurized. All right, now the countdown is finished and it will say off if you have turned the keep warm feature off, and now it is time to release the pressure. Some recipes have you let the pressure release naturally, which it will do over time, sometimes about 15-20 minutes, but I'm gonna go ahead and release it. Now I've got this little paper towel here just as a safety feature. Sometimes if your pot is too full with soup or anything liquidy, it'll spout out a little bit of liquid out of the top. So I just get a few paper towels and hold it there just in case, and it kind of will help you if things start kind of spurting out of the top of the pressure release valve. So this takes a little while sometimes for the pressure to release. I think it took probably about 3 or 4 minutes before it finally came out. Now you do not want to open this pot. It is highly pressurized until it releases, until that little silver plug goes down. You can sort of see there how it's up because there's pressure in the pot. And then after the pressure releases, that little plug will go down and then you can safely open your Instant Pot. All right, so we're getting close to all of the steam coming out. Sometimes I find the little pressure button is still kind of up, and I just kind of jiggle the pot a little bit and it'll make it go down if it seems like all the pressure's out but that little plug is still up. And here is the fun part where we're actually going to open the pot, and it smells delicious. By the way, even when you start cooking this and the stuff comes out of the vent, it smells awesome. Okay, again, if you want to open it, you turn it to the right. And looky there, oh my goodness, I'm telling you, I wish this was smell-o-vision. I wanted to show you the under part of the lid here. Actually, if you're cooking something that doesn't bubble and come up a lot into the pot, it doesn't get real dirty, but you still want to clean that upper lid really good before you put it away. Maybe in my next video, I'll show to actually how you take that seal out and clean it really good. All right, so here's where it gets fun. Let me get a spoon. We're gonna stir this up. Again, it's just so delicious smelling. The orzo pasta has cooked completely. It is a good soup consistency. Once again, it's why we add enough liquid. I don't feel anything burnt on the bottom of the pot, and we are ready to go. Now it's, of course, time to enjoy this yummy, piping hot soup. You might want to try a few additions that I have often done over the years to add to this soup, which is some Parmesan cheese. It just gives it a little extra flavor. And of course, some crackers, Ritz crackers, you know, whatever you have. Now this is a pretty large pot of soup, so unless you have a family of 4 or 6, you're not going to eat it all in one night. So with college students in mind, this is a great time to save your soup in these freezer bags. Let it cool completely, then you can ladle it into these freezer bags and put it in your freezer so you can have some meals later in the week. They also have a neat little way you can write the date and the actual recipe or what is in the bag on the front of the bag there. So that is a really neat way to make a delicious meal, a nutritious meal, and especially an easy meal if you're a college student. So parents, you may want to buy your kids in college an Instant Pot so they can start eating more nutritiously and have a little bit of home away from home. All right guys, hope you enjoyed this cooking video, and I hope to have more for my sweet son Garrett.